So for this recording, we'll keep our discussion on the producer model. So for this specific recording, we'll discuss about the invisible hand, the price, and also the first welfare theory. That'll be the theory to prove the market gave us the best result or the most efficient result. In order to demonstrate the welfare properties of market, we will need to measure the benefit each economic actor derives from being able to participate in markets. And in output markets, this requires us to measure the benefit to consumer and the producers. So in the input market, we need to measure the benefit to the workers, to the firms, and also those supplying the capital. I hope you still remember, like at the beginning of this course or this subject. So everybody, they have at least two identities. One is a customer, and the other one will be the producer. So when you watch this recording, you are the consumer of this recording. But when you provide a service to other people, you'll be the producer of this specific service. And at the end of previous recording, we have already discussed about this framework. I mean, when we discuss about this framework, we just want to show you that two way to maximize the profit of the producers. But actually, you can see here, everything on the left-hand side, everything is about the price. For example, like for the conditional input functions, for the labor and the capital, both of them are the function of three prices. The prices of two inputs with a price of output. And then for the output or the product you want to produce will be a function of these three prices as well. So that means actually in the previous semester, some students will immediately argue or found, actually you can see the reason why we see the prices are the invisible hand. Because if we assume there are the two type of the societies, one is a central planning. For example, like probably 30, 40 years ago, like the China 30 or 40 years ago, or even at the moment that some country, they still try to use the central planning. But the other one will be the market. So actually there is a long argument, which will be the best for the whole society. And for this recording, we try to answer this question. Specifically, we'll discuss about the function of the prices. The suppliers of the capital, they are usually the individuals who are lending the financial capable by saving, and the demanders of capital. They are the firms that invest in order to produce the product or the services. So that is for the reason why we have to discuss about the prices. Well, the market demand curve, they allow us to predict the behavior. It is not typically the red curve on which to measure the consumer supplies. So what is the meaning in here is, I have already shown you the three functions for the conditional input demand function with the output supply function. For the market demand curves, such as the conditional input demand functions, we can use them to predict the behavior. For example, like how many labor, how many capital we need for each of the firm. But it will be the tricky, tedious if we use any kind of the functional form to measure the consumer supplies. So in order to simplify our thinking about the market demand curves, we are tempted to think of them as if they had emerged from a single choice problem, or the way individual demand curves they did. We can treat the demand side in the product market as if it emerged from a single representative consumer. And if we assume a certain indifference map for that representative consumer, we can derive not only the observable market demand curve, but also the compensated market demand curve, on which we measure the consumer surplus. So the main idea of this slide is, in the previous recording, we don't really worry about the functional form of the demand functions. But for this specific recording, in order to simplify our life, we try to find a specific functional form which will be able to aggregate everybody's demand together as a kind of a special case. What is the special case? Special case means it is just to try to simplify our life. We can use in other functional forms, but it will be a little bit tedious or complicated. I mean, at least given the time we have, it will be better like for us to avoid those kind of tedious calculation. Specifically, we'll discuss about specifically for the rest 3 slides, we will explain what is the meaning of simplify our life. So what we do is we assume there is a representative consumer in the market. So that means there is only one identical consumer in the market, where a group of individuals behaves as if it were a single regional individual. We say that the group can be modeled as a representative consumer. For example, like consider the group composed of the 2 persons, person 1 and person 2, who individually optimize the A1 and A2 on their respective budget. So for us to be able to treat this group as a representative consumer, it cannot matter for the overall consumption bundle, how the income is distributed between the 2 people. So what is the meaning of this graph? That is actually, you can see we have an indifference curve between the 2 products, the X1 with the X2. And there are the 2 persons. The person 1, its budget is significantly higher than the budget 2. But if you aggregate them together, all of them become to the green line, the new budget. The new budget will be the linear combination of these 2 persons, or it's just a kind of an average of these 2 persons. So the logic will be, there are the 100 customers in the market, and some of them is richer than others. But if you average them, there is an identical customer. So the only way this does not impact the overall bundle of the group is if the change in the person's 1's bundle exactly offset by the change in person 2's bundle. So what the meaning is, you can easily average them. And this only happens if the errors in the graph, they are parallel to one another. So in the previous semester, some student made challenge this argument to say, you know what? No, this is not correct, because we have already not in this subject, but certainly in other subject, or I mean definitely it is existed. There'll be the income effect. The income effect means when the income is changed, when the income is increased, your consumption will be changed. So that means it's not possible for you to aggregate, for you to average a person with $3,000 per week with a person with $200 per week. So you're not able to average them. So in order to avoid this kind of argument, so that reason why we say, you know what, we just focus on if you assume this is possible for us to aggregate the people with a different income. Specifically, we call this is a quasi-linear test. For the quasi-linear test is a condition on tests that allow us to represent the groups as representative consumers. If tests are quasi-linear in the X1, we can redistribute the income within the group, and each individual will continue to purchase the same amount of X1 while adjusting only consumption of the X2. And then the change in individual behavior therefore exactly offset one another, and overall group consumption remains unchanged. So no group member is at a corner solution. So you can see like in here, if the test is a quasi-linear, the A prime will move down to the B prime, B1, not prime, B1. And then the A2 will move up to the B2. So the resulting representative consumer has a quasi-linear test. It's not really necessary for us to do this assumption, but the only reason is we want to simplify our life. So when we can reasonably assume the consumer tastes are the quasi-linear in some product, we can treat the market demand curve as if it is from the choices of a single representative consumer whose tastes are quasi-linear in the X. So some students may ask a question at the moment to see, okay, you know what, for the consumer, we assume there is only a representative customer. And also you are able to average everybody's income. And when the income is changed, nothing will be happened. How about the producer model? How about the producer, the firms? Actually, like we already discussed many times, for the firms, they have their own advantage. That is, their aim is very straightforward. Just money, profit. So no matter how big or how small of the firms, they are always looking for the profit. So that means we don't need to worry about the income effect, the so-called income effect for the producers. And the reason why we only argue about the consumer at the moment. Since the quasi-linear removes the income effects, we treat the market demand curve as a marginal willingness to pay on which the consumer surplus can be measured. And specifically, you can see for the top triangle above the market equilibrium, will be the consumer surplus. And then the bottom triangle will be the worker surplus. One way for you to understand the consumer surplus is there are the 100 customer in the market.